We'll get started. Thank you for joining us. My name is Elizabeth Edgar Webkamigad, and I'm the director of the Shingwauk Residential School Center at Algoma University, based here in Sault Ste. Marie. And I'm going to guess that you are from around the province. You're certainly welcome to let us know where you're from in the chat. I'd like to acknowledge my colleague Ella, who is helping pull this together, and going to keep an eye on the chat area so that if there's any questions that I miss, we certainly can attempt to answer them either right here in this session or in the next little while following up through emails. At the end of our visiting time here in it'll be really quick, 30 minutes, what we would like to do is send you an opportunity to have some feedback, share some thoughts and ideas, maybe ask your questions there if that's where you would like to ask. So please know we will ask you at the end to fill out a survey. So with that, we're going to carry on. I am welcoming you to the conversation on the sacred medicines as I have experienced and learned throughout the years. I am an Ojibwe Odawa Potawatomi woman from Manitoulin Island. My home community actually is known as Wakomakong, Wiki, Wequemkong, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Three Fires Confederacy around the Great Lakes region, and have lived here in Sault Ste. Marie now for 25 years. Kind of crazy, blows me away. We moved here when my little girl, she was a year old. Now she's 25, so 24 years going on 25. Thankfully, in that time of living in this area, known as Gwawat-Ting, or the gathering place, have had a real great opportunity to connect and be part of the life at Algoma University. My experience there, first of all, was as a student, I guess, and then as faculty, and now I'm part of the leadership team. And thankfully, coming from the family that I come from, my own two parents, born and raised within our traditional ways in the beginning, and then sadly taken to residential school. However, I really firmly believe that their first couple of years of life with the people that were raising them really solidified a belief and intrinsic connection to who we are as Anishinaabe people. And so thankfully, even though residential school, child welfare, 60 Scoop, and TB hospitalizations were a part of my parents' upbringing, we as kids, and there was 11 of us all together in our blended family, were still welcome to experience life as an Anishinaabe family. Naming ceremonies, puberty rites celebrations, coming out ceremonies into the dance circle when we were dancing, lots of beautiful ceremony all the way throughout my whole life. And so I'm very thankful that I have the ability and knowledge through experience, as well as knowledge gained through sitting and listening with teachers, knowledge keepers, traditional knowledge keepers, on the topic for today, which is our 4 sacred medicines. Now, there are many different medicines, but these ones in particular seem to be what I would say more common and maybe more well-known, both in our Indigenous and non-Indigenous world. We use them for prayer, we use them for offerings, we can grow them, we harvest them in our own area here in the province of Ontario and around the Great Lakes region. They grow in abundance. Some other places in Turtle Island or North America, as we know it, they grow in great abundance. For example, cedar and sweetgrass grow in great abundance around water. Our sage grows in abundance around and in dry conditions, so harder conditions in terms of the sun and exposure and all that. And then, of course, tobacco. Well, our tobacco plants, if we take care of them and honor with water and light and so on, they actually can thrive in pretty much any region. So if you lived far down south somewhere, you could grow your own tobacco. And so that's the plant I'm going to talk about and start with. This is my tobacco plant. It's just growing in a regular house planter right now. Now we have some beautiful weather here in Sault Ste. Marie, so I actually keep it on my front step. Had a friend, very generous friend, who gave me some seedlings, and so as I grew and got too big for the starter containers, I've actually transplanted this relative and put this relative in a bigger home. And so now what we will do is continue to water and feed and talk and think with good intentions for this plant, so that it is able to, grow in abundance, I guess is the best way to put it. And one of the teachings that I share with you here about this tobacco plant that I was taught in my family is, and my friend also shared it with us. She reminded me when she passed this over to us as a family, she said it's so important to make sure that you acknowledge the caretakers of this plant. And in our Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi stories, one of the things that we've been taught is that there are spiritual energies or spiritual realms that are around us all the time. And the spiritual energy, spiritual realm that is assigned, I guess you could say, to take care of this medicine are known as the little people. And the things that I share with you today in our brief time together, I just want you to understand and know that these are teachings that have been given to me. I'm sharing them freely with you. If they feel comfortable for you and you're really curious about something and you want to ask more questions, you can. I do want to acknowledge that there are many different teachings, variations of teachings out there around our medicines. I'm sharing with you what has been taught to me. So our little people, as we believe, is a spiritual energy, a spiritual realm that has been given the responsibility of taking care of this medicine in particular. And as I've been taught, the little people like shiny things. So when I transplanted this from the little seedling starter into this bigger pot, I actually put a diamond with my plant. The other thing I've been taught, and I think anybody who might be what we would call a green thumb is familiar with, is that people have talked about this for many years, as I recall, that plants do better when you talk to them. Just like water, same thing, that there's life there. And for our Anishinaabe ways of knowing and doing, our Odzawin, as we call it, our traditional knowledge, we believe that there is spirit energy in everything. And so talking to that spiritual energy, talking to that plant life, letting this tobacco plant know that as I was transplanting it, that I want to be able to offer some tobacco to my students in the fall when we come back, when it's time to harvest. So tobacco can grow all through a growing season. Typically our growing season here in the north is, April, May until around September, October, depending on temperature and frost and all that kind of stuff. And so I would harvest my tobacco in the fall. We would pick the leaves and we would hang them up to dry, very much like if somebody was drying a bushel of flowers and they got flowers for, their birthday and they wanted to dry them. You would hang them upside down and let the moisture drop out until to the point that they're dry. When tobacco is dry, we can crumble it up very easily going like this, and it becomes, crumbly. And then that tobacco can be used in that form. We also have tobacco, for example, many of us who might be familiar with a cigarette, the way that a cigarette looks. And so you can go to a store. If you can't grow tobacco, you can go to a store and you can make what we call tobacco ties. So this is a tobacco tie. It's essentially a little square piece of material, a piece of string, and in the middle of your hand, you would put the piece of material and a pinch of that kind of loose tobacco or cigarette tobacco that you might find, tie it all up, and here's your tobacco offering. As I've been taught, what's the difference between the plant tobacco and this kind of tobacco? Or if you don't even have access to any of that stuff and all you have is a cigarette, what's the difference? Is there any right or wrong? Is one better than the other? And I'm going to share with you, as I've been taught, our teacher, Grandma Lillian, to my family is that no. I mean, wonderful if you can get, grow your own tobacco and utilize tobacco in that traditional way, wonderful. But what actually is more important is the intentions that go into the use of the tobacco. While you're making this tobacco tie, you're talking and thinking with your heart and mind connected to this tobacco, and your intentions are going into that. And that's what's so sacred about tobacco offerings. That is what's more important, as my mom and Grandma Lillian talk about, doing something and not getting hung up on the rights and the wrongs. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we actually do have many of our people who are still very new, but seemingly wish to present like experts. And what they do is they point things out to people that that's a wrong way to do it. And what they end up doing, sadly, is they shame people. And shaming people doesn't get anyone anywhere, any further ahead. So I prefer to go with Grandma Lillian's teaching. For me, it's kind, it's loving. So if you live in the city, for example, you live in Toronto, you might not have access to natural plant tobacco. And so you might need to make use of buying a pouch at 7-Eleven or wherever. And you might actually need to literally just pass a cigarette with those good intentions of asking for help, giving thanks, whatever it might be. Now, as I mentioned, growing in abundance around water, another medicine is cedar. So here's a little tiny branch of cedar. Cedar trees are found in lots of places around the province, definitely grow in abundance around water. And cedar can be used for many things. One of the medicinal properties of cedar, when we boil it and make it like a cup of tea, put some honey in it, maple syrup in it, maple water in it, you can drink it like a medicinal cup of tea. It has healing properties in it. If you're not feeling well, you have a cold, sore throat, maybe you just had a really rough day and you need to make a soothing cup of something that makes you feel good and literally has medicinal properties in it. Cedar tea would be one of those things. Again, just like the plant of tobacco, you would go to a cedar tree, and this might be why you have a tobacco tie like the one I showed you, okay? A tobacco offering. Maybe you just take a pinch of the natural tobacco or even pouch tobacco and just put it down at the base of that cedar tree. And basically, as I've been taught, and I've taught my girls, and my mom learned before us, so that's 3 generations of learning this information. What we do is we speak to that cedar tree, and you ask that medicine in that cedar tree to come and help you. As you're making your cup of tea, you speak to that cedar and you tell that cedar, I need you to help me feel better. I'm not feeling great. And you might even want to talk about or express what it is that's bothering you. As I've been taught, when we vocalize and put things out to the universe, we're telling creation and notifying creation that we need that help. And so cedar tea is one of the beauties that we can acknowledge this wonderful medicine. We can also just pick some branches and we can use it as we do in my family over the doorway using a thumbtack, for example. Putting a thumbtack right here and then just hanging the cedar branch on the wall. In my family, we do it over the windows and over the doors, the entrances to our home. And the belief behind that is using the cedar as a way to protect, as a way to keep things clean, healthy, to keep germs out, those kinds of things. And then the other way that it's used, of course, is in burning. My mom talks about when she was a little girl, remembering the grandma and grandpa that raised her, Sophie and Eli, they were elders. She remembers, they were not outwardly spiritual, but what she remembers every morning in her growing up experience with them is Sophie putting a little branch of cedar on the wood stove. and the crackling noise that it would make as it burned, the beautiful aroma that it would have in the house. If you've never smelled cedar burning before, it's a beautiful smell. And so making cedar tea, smudging with it, using it in our doorways. We have people who actually put cedar like this in a little cloth material, making what we would call maybe a cedar pillow, maybe for someone who's having bad dreams, maybe for somebody who's having headaches. You might put it on your forehead and let the aroma and the healing properties of cedar help you to feel better. And you know, when we think about all these different teachings, different remedies, as we call them, you might hear, you know, something similar that I've talked about. You might hear somebody else talk about it in your relationships with Indigenous people. You might have experienced it yourself. You might have seen it, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it and you're actually kind of curious to learn more. I remind you, you can certainly send questions in our chat. Ella will keep track of those, and we will do our best to get back to you to answer or provide you some direction. The other medicine that I'd like to talk about this evening is sweetgrass. So this is a braid of it, and the way that I've got it held, some people literally carry these in their vehicles, and it's like this on their rearview mirror. Some people actually carry it across their dashboard in their vehicle. So there's the braid, and it goes all the way across literally the dashboard. Sweetgrass is a beautiful medicine that also has a beautiful aroma to it when it burns. Has a sweet smell to it. When it's growing and it's time to harvest, you literally can, you know, be driving down the highway and you can smell it. Sweetgrass is a beautiful, beautiful smell. There's when we're talking about harvesting it, I'm going to show you up close here. This is the root end of the grass, and the sweetgrass actually grows very tall. I would say probably in Walpole Island area can be as tall as over 3 feet. I've seen braids of sweetgrass that big. They're beautiful to see. Here in our area, we harvest usually around the end of July, beginning of August. It grows tall enough to actually start harvesting. And what we would do is you wouldn't just go to, you know, a field of grass where it smells like sweetgrass and then just pick a handful and just, you know, go and grab it like this. You literally have to go down to the bottom of each blade and move the grass and go right to the root. And what you will notice if you are picking sweetgrass, it's the right blade of grass to pick. You actually will actually see a purple root right at the end. You would pick just above that purple root, and that's how you know you're picking sweetgrass. Where does it grow around the province? It actually grows in any area, swampy area, water area. So for example, a lot of times the ditches at the side of highways, you might actually, you know, driving with the windows down because it's a beautiful summer day, and you might actually catch a whiff of really sweet smelling air. And chances are that's what you're smelling is sweetgrass. So it grows all around the province. Depending on where you live, I might be able to point you in the direction of where to find it. And sweetgrass, you know, I use sweetgrass in my vehicle. Actually keep it on my dashboard. We use it when we travel. We smudge with it. We burn it from the end that is growing up to the sky. So that's the end there. We would start literally by lighting it on fire and smudging ourselves like this with the smoke that burns from it. The belief behind, if you've never watched any Anishinaabe people smudge, time of day, we actually go out around noon to harvest sweetgrass, mostly because of the bugs. Picking sweetgrass is hard work, and black flies and mosquitoes, you know, all of those good things are out there. So when we go right around lunchtime, you know, so not in the morning, not in the evening, or you'll get eaten alive for sure. But you also don't want to be out past noon because, of course, it gets really hot and you don't need to be not well because of the heat. But the smoke that we use when we smudge with tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, or cedar, the smoke that we use, you know, some people wonder, what is smudging? Why do people go like this when they're smudging? Well, the belief is that smoke, there's medicinal properties in any of those medicines, and we are using the smoke to bring that medicine onto us, to provide a clear mind, a clear heart, clear thoughts. Maybe we're going into a meeting and you might have seen or heard, First Nations, Métis, or Inuit people wanting to smudge at the beginning of their meeting, and maybe it's a part of the opening prayer. The thought around that is that we'll come together with like minds, like hearts, to get the job done, whatever it is that we're going in there for. So it really is about mobilizing energy and putting it into a good place. The last medicine that I'm going to share with you about that I've grown up with, this is known as sage. This is actually beautiful smelling sage. Our sage here in this area doesn't look like this when we pick it and bundle it all together. This is what we would call a sage stick. So it's a number of there's the different stems that you can see kind of gathered together and then put some twine around it to make a sage stick. It burns easier. This is the end that I would actually burn it. So this is the stem end. This would be the leaf end. And once we dry it, it becomes easy to burn. Sage is something that can be used I've also had people drink tea, make sage tea. I've heard people not only use it for smudging, but they use it as an opportunity for protection. So they too might use sage, kind of like how I use cedar in my family. Sage, as my brother used it in the Sundance ceremony, can be used for protection. He actually made sage bracelets and anklets, and that's what he danced with because that's what he was instructed to do. It was a form of protection when he was at his most vulnerable. So I've had conversations with many different cultures actually in the ability to teach at Algoma University. We have a diverse student body, and in sharing stories, there are a number of cultural groups that actually do use sage to smudge or to participate in what we might call a purification ceremony. I think that's really kind of cool that there are other cultural groups that do some of the things that we do as Anishinaabe people. I've had people ask me, where can I buy sage? Because, we don't have any conditions where it grows naturally in our area. I've had people ask me, I know that, what's that store called? Hot Topic. Hot Topic sells them. You go into one part of the store and there's a whole wall full of different kind of medicinal natural remedies like this available. And somebody asked me, is it wrong to buy it there? And my answer is no. As I've been taught, Grandma Lillian indicated, sometimes our people don't have access to the traditional ways that we would have harvested or had access to some of our medicines. And if there's an opportunity, if somebody, for example, is harvesting and, they have a vehicle and they go drive up the highway to a powwow, or they go to, someone that they know who picks it, they might barter or exchange money, paper money in today's world for having access to that medicine. And then that person with the vehicle might actually drive back to Toronto or, some other place where people have a hard time getting medicine, and they might actually share. Maybe somebody else knows how to sew, so they barter that way. They trade that way. The bartering and trading, form of commerce is still very much alive in Anishinaabe country. Lots of people trade, this for something else. And it might be sewing, it might be beadwork, it might be paper money. And I think, probably the most important message I would want to share with you here today is that, in today's world, 2020, certainly right now, gosh, with everything that's going on in our health world, everything that's going on in our social justice world, human beings are faced with such adverse and trying conditions, such horrible scenarios that, maybe have been about for generations in their family. And this is really just a continuation of generations of trauma. Maybe for some people, they're really, using this time to reflect and think about their self-care. And for me, I know for me, definitely, over the last 10, 11 weeks that we've been in this situation that we're in, my medicines and access to my medicines have been so important. They've grounded me, is what I tell my students when I'm teaching the class that I teach at the university. We talk about our grounding experience. What gets you to an okay place when you're way out there and things are way out there for you? What brings you back to a good place? Well, for some people, it's meditation. For some people, it's visioning, closing your eyes and really visioning something better. For me, it's a combination of those kinds of things: physical care, going for a walk, prayer, taking good care of yourself by eating properly, sleeping properly. But also, as I've been taught and have practiced literally all of my life, smudging and using these medicines to be a part of getting me to a good place. And so when I think about the first two presentations we did today, I had somebody ask me, okay, is it okay if I use these things if I'm non-Indigenous? And my message to anybody that I would share with is yes. Our world, has been given many beautiful things. I think what's important is if you understand what and how to harvest, what and how to use. What kind of offerings do you give back in reciprocation for that goodness that it brings to you? We don't over harvest so that we allow the medicine to keep growing. We're respectful. We state our intentions. We give tobacco offerings. Maybe we continue on with doing our best to live what we would call the good life, in exchange as a thank you for these medicinal plants and what they bring to us. So I think that humanity, needs our Anishinaabe people and some of our practices to be generous to help people along. And sometimes it might be just something as simple as sharing a smudge with somebody. I've seen it happen this whole past year. I taught 2 different courses, and I taught Mondays and Wednesdays, 8:30 to 10. So first class of the semester, first day of the semester, first day of the week, every week for the rest of the semester. And I would have many students who would want to come and smudge because for them, it felt like a calming or a grounding kind of experience. And if that was the small thing that I could do, with some of the things that are naturally available around us, like a cedar tree, then that's what I would want to do. Now, as far as sage goes, I've talked about the other places that we can harvest some of these medicines. Sage, this kind I would be definitely getting in the Southwest United States. So I have people who send this to me, and I'm very thankful. We have sage here in our area. It doesn't grow like this. It looks a little bit different. But what you need to do is, investigate your local area. If you are not able to get your hands on some, either through purchase or trading or accessibility to someone who has it, then you definitely need to do some research on how you can grow it. I've had people ask about the kind of sage that's grown in a garden, for example. Decorative sage, can I use that? What about the sage that I grow in my garden? I use it for cooking. Plant life comes from Shkakamekwe, as I've been taught, Mother Earth. And so what she gives to us, what these plants give to us can be used. And that's what I've been taught. So I know that half an hour is not a long time. One of the things that we really just wanted to do is introduce people the opportunity to have a bit of an understanding, gain a bit of an understanding, maybe have some affirmation, maybe they're already holding some information. Another way to socially connect, right? Because we're all disconnected from people. So to see people and interact this way is a good thing, a positive thing. And then, of course, maybe out of interest, you're interested in learning a little bit more about Canada's First Nations, Métis and Inuit, and some of our cultural traditions that really bring a lot of richness to our life. you know, the last message I'd like to leave with you is these are ways of believing that have existed for generations. In my family, I really see it as it's a part of my DNA. It's a part of my children's DNA. It's a part of our who we are, and it has been for a long, long time. So I want to thank you for your time. I really want to wish you well. I hope it's sunny in your part of the world, wherever you are, here in Ontario, around Sault Ste. Marie, maybe Toronto, wherever you are. Really want to thank you for taking the opportunity out of your day to sit and visit by listening. It's really a one-way conversation. What we are going to do, though, is we are going to offer more opportunities. We've had great feedback today indicating more interest in stuff like this. So stay tuned. If you found out about us through Facebook or, you know, through our website, I'm not sure how you did, but please, you're welcome, Nick. Please stay tuned, because we are going to do more. I'm going to hand it over to Ella, my colleague. I wish all of you a good evening and stay safe and healthy for sure. Right on.
Thank you much, Liz.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much for your time and for all of your words and wisdom.
Hey, no worries. Right on. Take care, everybody.
All right, folks. So as Liz was indicating, we are working on developing more workshops and webinars so we can continue to connect with the community. I've posted a link in the group chat to the survey. There's only 4 questions. It'll take you just minutes to fill out, but it will really help us be able to continue to deliver. And it will also, it's a great place for you to ask questions, leave your information, so we can get back to you with any questions you might have. Have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.